This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. I'm Eben Jansen. The show, of course, live broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. We also stream live on YouTube right now with the whole show, as always, available on demand on our YouTube channel. Now, today we'll have a legal expert pick apart the Oscar Pistorius parole decision. We also speak to the newly elected leader of the NUM, David Spoonsy, a little bit later. We're waiting for him to come and make an appearance. Also, we'll look at SADC's regional integration plan, and we close today with Blood Month and what you should be doing to help. First, though, the day's news with Anindo Mal.
Good morning, I'm Anindo Mal. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. Identikits for the 7 prisoners who escaped from the Lenasia Magistrates Court will be released during the course of the day. Police say they're searching around the clock for the prisoners who escaped from the court in Johannesburg yesterday. Meanwhile, Western Cape police say a 3rd suspect involved in a foiled robbery at Surrey Estate in Athlone late last night has died in hospital. Metal Workers Union NUMSA will today fight its expulsion from CUSATU in the High Court in Johannesburg. The union is continuing its battle against CUSATU, which last month saw it fit to force the Labour Federation to commit to holding a special national congress as requested by a 3rd of affiliates. NUMSA wants the court to rule that it can send delegates to the Congress. It also wants to ensure that the Congress has full powers to reinstate NUMSA. Lastly, NUMSA will ask the court to rule that the new Metal Workers Union, NUMSA, which has replaced it within CUSATU, does not attend the Congress. Meanwhile, CUSATU says it's ready to fight NUMSA's court challenge. CUSATU President Dumo Dlamini says NUMSA can only appeal its expulsion at an ordinary Congress to be held later in the year. The Department of Correctional Service insists that Oscar Pistorius has met all requirements for release on parole. It says he will now serve the rest of his term under correctional supervision. Yesterday, the department recommended that the athlete be considered for probation as early as August the 21st. The Supreme Court of Appeal has also confirmed that the state's appeal against the acquittal of Pistorius will be heard in November. Pistorius was convicted of culpable homicide last year after shooting his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp in 2013. President Jacob Zuma will today meet with representatives of various youth organizations to discuss the national youth policy. The inaugural session of the Presidential Youth Working Group brings together governments and youth formations to enable the youth to participate in shaping policy at the highest level. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is scheduled to speak at the 7th South Africa AIDS Conference in Durban today. The main focus of the conference will be the sharing of the South African Stigma Survey results. And Burundi's Electoral Commission has proposed new dates for the country's upcoming elections. The Commission has now set the presidential vote for the 15th of July, while parliamentary elections have been diarised for the 26th of June. The move is unlikely to satisfy government opponents who have held weeks of protests calling President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a 3rd term unlawful. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Eben, over to you.
Thank you, Anin. Now, Paralympian Oscar Pistorius could be serving his sentence under house arrest 3 months before the state argues that he should be convicted of murder. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein says it's most likely that a full bench of the SCA will hear the state's arguments appealing against the murder acquittal of Pistorius. He's currently serving a jail term after being found guilty of culpable homicide for the death of his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. She was shot dead in the athlete's home in Pretoria in February of 2013. He's serving a 5-year sentence, but he's eligible for parole in August of this year. The SCA says the legal teams for the prosecution and the defence have to argue on which sections of the 31 volumes of records of the case must be included in the appeal. The state then has 6 weeks to lodge heads of argument. Pistorius' legal team will then have a month to file their response. The case will then be placed on the SEA's roll and could be heard as early as November this year. Now, joining us for a closer look at the case is law expert Alton Hart from the University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic. Very good morning to Alton. Nice to see you again.
Morning, Evan. Nice to see you.
Seems I only see you when Oscar's in the news.
Funny enough, I was thinking the Oscars return again.
Tell me quickly, this decision of probation in law, how is it viewed? Just take us through the process.
Normally, it's like when a person gets eligible for parole, it's normally the parole board, which sits in the Department of Correctional Services. It's also correctional officials that normally heads this parole board with members of the community and other stakeholders involved in the process. And they take a decision if a person is eligible for parole or not. But in the parole process also, the victim's family members can also lodge representations where they can oppose the parole being set for a specific individual. So it depends on, I don't know how far the process is, because nothing has been leaked yet, if the parole hearing has been set, but that's normally the process that one should follow or would be followed by the correctional officials when dealing with a parole matter.
Now, we've seen the family come out, Reeva Steenkamp's family, and saying that they feel that this was just way too light and they would like him to stay in prison. How much weight would this carry within the context of this discussion?
As I said earlier, normally the victims' parents, family members, brothers, sisters, they are normally involved in the parole process. They are actually asked to actually make representations, and then these representations, which is like where they complain, saying that we feel that he still needs to suffer or be in prison for a specific period of time, get taken into consideration with the accused person or the sentenced person's circumstances, and these two things are weighed up against each other, and then the parole officials will then decide, is the representations fair and is it in the interest of justice, which means the public interest. So it's not just if you make representations that they will keep a person there, they will look at both sides, because the Constitution guarantees that everybody is equal before the law, so they have to balance these two things as well.
Now there's been quite an uproar or outrage on social media and the like following this announcement yesterday. The sentiment pretty much is 10 months is not enough if you take a life. How do you view this in law and then as an individual?
Because the thing is, like, one should look at the sentencing option that was exercised. It was under 2761H. So it means that I think it's 1/6 of his sentence he has to serve, and then he becomes eligible for parole. That's just the sentencing option. So if one has to look at different other sentencing options, then obviously different circumstances apply. But in his case, it's now one of the things that is working in his favor. But with the appeal coming up in November, if the Supreme Court of Appeal finds that Oscar was actually guilty of committing the crime of murder, he can be recalled, go back to prison. So people shouldn't be throwing arms in the air. And there's still process that needs to be followed. And it's not home and dry and safe for Oscar if he gets out of jail on parole, because he can violate the parole by drinking, for instance. If they find him drunk, back into the system, then he must serve his sentence again. So,
what are some of the other conditions that would be on this sort of parole application?
It's now anything that is seen as a crime. If you commit a crime, be it as petty as, I can say maybe a traffic offense even, you can be called back by the commissioner, but the commissioner has a discretion. And also you also have an officer that normally visits you at home to see what you're doing, what you keep yourself busy with. And that officer, if that officer finds that you most probably have been dealing drugs now again, he can just write a report, and then 2-3 days you back in the chuki.
So Oscar will now be at home, and then the main appeal will only happen 3 months after. Isn't that a little, I don't know, it's a little difficult to fathom for us who walk the streets.
Yeah, the thing is, like, people should also know, it's like he becomes eligible for parole on the 21st of August, round about there. But the parole board from the correctional institution didn't say he will go out, because they can say maybe they'll hear his parole on the 21st of August, but only determine his release date much later.
Yeah.
And I think what the best would be for them to do is to make sure that the release date is after the Supreme Court of Appeal has dealt with this issue. Then I think there won't be so much uproar on the social media networks and those kind of things. So if the Supreme Court says, okay, High Court, you were right in your decision, there we go. No, then they keep him and change the verdict.
Let's wrap it up quickly and go to the appeal that's supposedly set for November. That date, of course, hasn't been set yet. 31 volumes of records to be decided upon which is included and which not. How does that process play out? And then what is your expectation? Are we going to hear a lot of dolus eventualis again?
I think the issue that was high on the people's lips and also on the legal experts' lips was the issue of dolus eventualis. And I think some people feel that dolus eventualis was interpreted wrong by the High Court judge when she gave her verdict. And some people felt that maybe she was not wrong. So there's like a 50-50. But dolus eventualis, be my guest, it will be there come November. And a lot of people want legal clarity on that, and the Supreme Court of Appeal will give us clarity as to. And then obviously the other lower courts has to follow the decision until a next decision comes, until a next super athlete comes and do something funny that might end us up in the Supreme Court of Appeal again.
Interesting. Alton, thanks for joining us, giving us your views. Legal expert Alton Hart from University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic, giving us his views after the announcement that, well, Oscar Pistorius is eligible for parole from the 21st of August this year. Just to recap, the Correctional Services Department has stressed that the appeal against the acquittal of Oscar Pistorius on murder charges does not affect its recommendation that he be released from jail, rather. The department has recommended that the athlete be considered for probation within the next 2 months. Pistorius was found guilty of shooting and killing his model girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp, 2 years ago. He was sentenced to 5 years in October of last year.
Ten months after being escorted into this armored vehicle, Oscar Pistorius could walk free. The athlete's parole officially starts on August the 21st. The Correctional Services Department assessed his application last week.
The Correctional Supervision and Parole Board of Kosimampuru, the second correctional center, met on the 5th of June and considered a submission made by the Case Management Committee and has made a decision that indeed on the 21st of August 2015, Oscar Pistorius will be placed under correctional supervision.
This means Pistorius could serve the remainder of his 5-year sentence at home, but this comes as no surprise to some legal experts.
He was sentenced in terms of Section 276 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which provides that if he is sentenced to a prison term less than 5 years, he can serve 1/6 of his sentence in prison, and then the remainder of his sentence under correctional supervision, which is in effect house arrest.
But the Steenkamps are reeling in shock. The man who killed their daughter could walk free just 2 days before Reva would have celebrated her 32nd birthday.
They were surprised and a bit shocked as well. They don't feel that it sends out the right message and serves as a proper deterrent. They have forgiven Oscar Pistorius. They've said that many times. They don't want him to suffer. However, the message that is sent to society must be the correct one. It must serve as a deterrent.
Despite the new developments, the state is forging ahead with its appeal of the Paralympians' culpable homicide conviction in November. The state wants Pistorius' conviction overturned to murder. A date for the appeal is yet to be confirmed. Manqoba Mchunu, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Of course, social media was once again abuzz following the news that the former Paralympian athlete Oscar Pistorius is expected to be released on correctional supervision on the 21st of August. Here are some of the other views that we've seen that you have. Zondi says, in South Africa, only prisoners who are infamous and poor will die in jail. Pistorius will be a free man in August. Hashtag Pistorius is Zondi. Iggy says, do you think they will listen if we sign a petition to keep him in jail? I don't think so. There's something called the law, Iggy, that we kind of have to respect the rule of law that is in democracy. Kat says, we on August already? Hashtag Oscar Pistorius. Yes, time flies. Time flies, my dear. Looks like yesterday, didn't it? Maras says, so he's about to be released. Hashtag Oscar Pistorius. Anyway, it's none of my business. Yes, Maras. Rafael Matlare says, 10 months is not enough. Fact remains, whether intended or not, this man took a life. Hashtag Oscar Pistorius. And that is the sober reality. What do you think? 10 months enough if you take a life? Recklessness? Intent to kill? What are your views at SABC Newsroom? Let's take a look now at our picture of the day. Something from left field. Yeah, totally different. The Boston Globe captioned another truck falls victim to Westwood's East Street Bridge. Worldwide moving. That's a business that we are not going to use when we have to do any moving, everybody. Yeah, the front pages from around the globe. We start in Europe. The Times there reports David Cameron was forced into an embarrassing climb down yesterday after facing his first serious revolt since the election over whether ministers will be allowed to campaign to leave Europe. Across the pond, we move to the US. The Wall Street Journal reports that Hong Kong has issued a red alert warning against travel to South Korea, which is battling an outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome. The country's health officials said the number of MERS cases have now risen to 87. And in China, the South China Morning Post also leads with that story. Hong Kong today issued a formal warning against travel to South Korea amid an outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome that has claimed 7 lives now. Let's have a look at what's happening around our country today. We start here in Johannesburg, where former boxing champion Dingaan Thobela is expected to appear in the Commercial Crimes Court for allegedly failing to register his funeral company. We stay in the City of Gold. The High Court will hear an application to declare that NUMSA remains an affiliate of COSATU. And in Polokwane, the Limpopo Gambling Board is expected to defend its decision to close an online gambling operation and arrest its owner. The owner of an internet cafe, who was allegedly using it to run an online gambling operation, appealed against the decision. Now, with the help of author of Connect with the Continent, Terry Behan, Newsroom keeps you updated on what's happening in Africa. Recently, Terry was in Lagos. Take a look at what he did there. Interesting.
You might think we're in New York, you might think we are in Singapore, you may think we are in London. We are indeed in Lagos, at an amazing concept store called Alara, which is dedicated to highlighting the best of African design and African fashion. This unique structure was designed by David Adjaye, originally from Tanzania. David Adjaye is without a doubt one of the world's best known architects. Alara is a brave experiment bringing together an eclectic mix of African designers and well-known Western fashion labels such as Alexander McQueen. Literally all of the corners of the continent are represented, with well-known designers such as Cheick Diallo from Mali, Hamed Otora from Burkina Faso, and Imizo Ceramics from Cape Town. This really is the only space of its kind on the continent, part retail, part gallery, and part showroom. Alara is introducing top-end African design to the Nigerian consumer, communicating a strong sense of cultural pride. This unique space is sure to capture the imagination of a continent on the rise.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom. Wage talks in the gold mining industry start in Johannesburg today, with labour union AMCU threatening to embark on a strike. AMCU President Joseph Matunja has warned the Chamber of Mines that it faces what he calls massive industrial action in the gold and coal sectors. The current 3-year agreement for the two sectors expire at the end of this month, and a new deal should ideally be in place by the beginning of July. Now, Matunja reiterated the union's key demand of 12,500 rand for its lowest paid members. AMCU led a 5-month strike at platinum mines last year. Mining analysts are predicting protracted talks as AMCU's rival, the NUM, have tabled demands of more than 80% for its lowest paid members in the context of a depressed global commodity price index. The NUM's newly elected General Secretary, Mr. David Spoonsy, joins us in studio this morning. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Evan.
Congratulations on the election. Just tell us, it was a very tight race. What was your experience?
Well, it was very tough, but I was not fearing anything in it. It was democracy taking its course.
Democracy taking its course. Now, I'm sure that you've had a little celebration afterwards, but celebrations are now hardly over, and you're faced with the situation of negotiating a new deal, which looks like it's going to be tough negotiations in the gold industry, along with AMCU. How do you see that?
First of all, I've not yet had the opportunity to celebrate. Today we are meeting with the Chamber of Mines to draw a plan, negotiations plan. I want to believe that it's going to be very tough this time, because our members have made it very vehemently that they won't take anything less than what they have demanded.
Now, the industry can't afford it. This is what all the smart analysts are saying. The industry simply cannot afford these demands. And as you've seen as what happened in the platinum sector, if you force the hand, eventually it leads to massive job losses. How are you going to sell that to your members?
If the analysts say it's not good for the industry, well, we expect to see the CEOs showing the public the cuts in their salaries. They are still raking millions in salaries and bonuses.
That's one thing, but those are individuals. We're talking about 90% of the workforce wanting a 100% increase. It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, but 100 is a big figure. 100% is a big figure in your view. But 100% of 90% or 80% of 5,000 rand is nothing. Because that's what the lowest earner is getting in the mines at the moment.
But surely there must be some lateral thinking here that goes on, that yes, we understand the situation for the workers is dire, but we can't pay 20% of the workers more, and then 6 months down the line, 80% of the workers have to be retrenched because it's unaffordable.
The threat of retrenchment has been there. As long as there is a mine, there will always be a threat for retrenchment. Even if you accept low increases, there will be retrenchments.
What about the wider economy? If we have another strike season like we had last year, and you saw the damage that it caused, you can't refute it. The damage to the economy was clear for everyone to see. How do you assume responsibility for the wider economy within this context if we go through another protracted strike season, which could really affect all industries, everybody in South Africa?
First of all, Eben, as NUM, we have not planned for a strike. A strike will be unfortunate and a result of the failed negotiations. We don't plan for a strike. So we cannot be accused of fiddling with the economy, this and that. No, that's not our plans.
Let's talk politics. Let's talk politics quickly. We saw pictures there of Mr. Vavi. I saw in the weekend papers that you and Mr. Vavi are very good friends. Is that true?
I've never personally met Vavi, although I've known him for a long time at a distance. I've never met him. I'm not a friend of Vavi.
It's reported that Mr. Vavi said that it is a momentous occasion, your election to this position, and it will lead the movement forward. Your response to that, sir?
It's his personal analysis, and as a seasoned trade unionist, I believe he's right in his thinking.
AMCU, the other issue on the table is UMCU. How do you see the NUM's relationship with UMCU developing under your tenure as the leader of the NUM?
First of all, I'm begging Mr. Matunja to come back to NUM. That's where the home of the mine workers is. I do understand that he was disillusioned, he was expelled from the union for whatever reason. He must come back.
So you say there's a real chance of you extending the olive branch and UMCU coming back in the NEM? That is what you would like to see happen?
Definitely, we can't talk unity of workers at the same time exclude other what you call parties.
What about the wider politics within COSATU? The challenge within the union is the move within for you really is getting the balance right between workers' issues and politics. Do you think in the last couple of years we've got the balance right within getting the politics and the workers' issues balanced within COSATU?
Obviously, the balance is not right. We don't say COSATU must be apolitical or pro-worker. There must be a balance. As you say, there's been no good balance in the past few months.
You've just assumed office ahead of what people call strike season. The country is waiting with bated breath as to what you are going to do, what the workers are going to do, and how it's going to affect the economy. What do you see as your number one priority that you have to deal with right now?
Well, I've been preaching unity amongst workers. Because if we are not united, there's nothing we can win as workers.
There's also a court bid today that's before the courts, NUMSA's court bid. You understand the expulsion from COSATU. How do you view this and what's your reaction to the court bid itself?
My reaction is that this is an unfortunate situation. A trade union taking the federation to court. However, I found it there. I found this saga there already. So there's nothing I can do about it. But it's an unfortunate situation.
And you, in conclusion, it's something that all South Africans are very worried about, is the outlook for the economy following protracted strikes. What is your message to South Africans with regards to the looming strike season?
Well, I say to the South Africans, it would be unfortunate if we are compelled to go to a protracted strike. That's not what we planned for, and the South Africans must help the situation not to go there by persuading the bosses to pay the people who make their wealth.
Mr. Sipunzi, thank you very much for joining us. I understand it's going to be a very difficult couple of weeks for you in the negotiation seat. I wish you all the best. Thank you for joining us. This is the newly elected General Secretary of the NUM, Mr. David Sipunzi, joined us live here in studio this morning, was elected over the weekend in a very tightly contested election. Now, the High Court in Johannesburg will today hear an application to declare that NUMSA remains an affiliate of COSATU. Let's take a look at what you're saying about this matter. Some people are very passionate about it. Tami Masamola says, NUMSA wants back in on COSATU but refuses to comply with its rules. Is it as simple as that, Tami? Kati says, it's clear there is no light at the end of the tunnel for these men. NUMSA goes to court today to fight COSATU expulsion, says at Kati. Johan Rousseau says, Kandanium, I'm concerned NUMSA is against privatization, but your investment company benefits from state-owned entities paid by taxpayers. That one from Johan Rousseau. It's D-Day for NUMSA today as they're heading for court to reclaim COSATU, and a win for them, I guess, will be the end of Stumu and Co. E-Tolls nonsense, says that one. Bo Mnwane says, Sizoni, I had nothing to do with ideology. It's a personalities dispute fueled by contested space. NUMSA wants to organize in NUM territory. Is it, Bo? Is it as simple as that? I think there's a whole lot of ideological and political arguments that runs as a backstory there. Anyhow, let's look at our tweet of the day. Today it comes from Sydney G saying, house arrest for #Oscar Pistorius after serving a petite 10 months for killing his girlfriend. Borders around gross injustice for other prisoners. Well, 1/6 is what you are supposed to to spend in prison, I suppose. Now let's take a look at what's happening on Newsroom's Facebook page. Of course, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa will be in the High Court in Johannesburg today to fight that expulsion from the Congress of South African Trade Unions. Then Burundi's Electoral Commission has proposed new dates for parliamentary and presidential elections. The Commission is proposing June 26 as the date for parliamentary elections and July 16 for the presidential election. And Yemen's exiled President Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi has played down next week's talks in Geneva between his country's warring parties, saying they will only address ways to implement a Security Council resolution demanding his enemies retreat. For more news updates, you can follow us on this Facebook page that you see right here. Of course, SABC Newsroom in the search bar. Or you can simply go to sabc.co.za/news. That's where you get all the updates all the time. Time for a break. You're with Newsroom on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. Identikits for the 7 prisoners who escaped from the Lenasia Magistrates Court will be released throughout the day. Police say they're searching around the clock for the prisoners who escaped from the courts in Johannesburg yesterday. Meanwhile, Western Cape police say a 3rd suspect involved in a foiled robbery at Surrey Estate in Athlone late last night has died in hospital. Metal Workers Union NUMSA will today fight its expulsion from COSATU in the High Court in Johannesburg. The union is continuing its battle against COSATU, which last month saw it fit to force the Labour Federation to commit to holding a special national congress as requested by a 1/3 of affiliates. And the Department of Correctional Service insists that Oscar Pistorius has met all requirements for release on parole. It says he will now serve the rest of his term under correctional supervision. Yesterday, the department recommended that the athlete be considered for probation as early as August the 21st. Remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Evan, back to you.
Thanks very much, Janine. Enhancing regional integration for sustainable development will be the order of the day at the 6th annual SADC Regional United Nations Public Administrations Network Workshop. The 2-day workshop that kicks off in Kempton Park tomorrow will also focus on strengthening socio-economic and political integration within the continent. Now, to tell us a little bit more, we're joined in studio today by the Centre for Public Service Innovation CEO, Thuli Khadebe. A very good morning to you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
The annual SADC Regional United Nations Public Administration Network. That's a mouthful. It's in its 7th year. Tell us about the importance of this workshop, and then what is your expectation that will happen from tomorrow?
Well, the United Nations, as you know, runs numerous programs, and I will zoom straight into the SADC Regional UNPAN, we call it UNPAN workshop, which starts tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They have a program, obviously, that focuses on public administration and the promotion of service excellence in public administrations around the world. And they have online regional centers around the world. We, the Center for Public Service Innovation, represent South Africa as one of the ORCs to make sure that there's coordination at a SADC level.
How are we doing within the Southern African development community in light of recent challenges we've had with our neighbours and within our own country?
I think we're doing very well. We don't get an opportunity such as this one. We don't get opportunities such as this one to talk more about the positive occurrences within the SADC region as such. But we're trying our best. We'll always have challenges. We just need to be able to dig deep, into the problems that are challenging, that are facing us, so that we deal with the root causes rather than the cracks all the time.
It's about solidarity, isn't it, that these kinds of scenarios are all about. Just tell us about the participation at this workshop itself. How many countries and what do you expect them to contribute?
We're expecting, well, there's 14 SADC countries, and we're expecting about 12 to come and participate. We coordinate content for a web-based portal that's run by the United Nations. We coordinate content for the SADC region. Yeah. What we expect them to do is to come and share with us on the challenges that they have in terms of coordinating this content and sending it to us for uploading. And we want to understand how the network is contributing to the challenges they are facing in their countries as well.
Now, we always hear about horrific stories on the continent. Tell us about the innovative practices that you guys have come up with in the SADC region that we don't hear about and that does really good work.
I will give you one example, a mobile kitchen that has been developed that reaches the most remote rural areas in some of the African countries that have been developed, and people get warm meals during the day or whenever these kitchens can reach them. I will tell you about how people are working on roads, regrading of roads, and they struggle to get petrol, if you like, to those areas. Yeah. And they've come up with very innovative ways of, instead of having to go back home to refill, they just keep going and they can cover more ground during the day. And there's various examples in South Africa where an ordinary, for instance, because we focus on ICT and non-ICT innovations, where an ordinary permaculture garden has been used, for instance, to drive economic development in a rural area. And I can give you, where apps are used to improve, to reach citizens, where a clinic, for instance, has gone beyond just doing what a nurse is supposed to do, or a police officer has gone beyond his or her call of duty, and they've created houses to accommodate abused women. The story is long.
The region itself, how are we going to further tackle issues with the kind of networks that we're putting in place, and how are we going to connect the infrastructure development plans that we always hear about?
We need to find synergies and linkages between all our programs. You have the United Nations driving this good program, saying you will share on best practices. You have the African Union that has come up with a charter for Africa to behave in particular ways, to implement certain programs. We need to find synergies between these programs. We need to find linkages so that people can have consolidated programs. Otherwise, it becomes all silos, a program by the UN, a program by the African Union. So we just need to understand people to come to terms and to practicalize all these good knowledge, that we have gained and generated over the years. But importantly, we need to generate our own knowledge. We need to consolidate and find our own ways of telling our stories. Otherwise, the world will want to tell our stories and we won't have the greatest of fun.
Innovation is now a buzzword, not just in Africa, but around the world, is that we have to find ways to innovate. We see lots of young people on the continent being at the forefront of this. Do you think that we have the capacity here within SADC, within this region, to really be a key innovator going forward in what we all would like to see as the African century?
Yes, we do. We do have the opportunity. We do what it takes. Fortunately, my organization, this organization, the Center for Public Service Innovation, has also been driving a continental program on innovation. And we've seen how the enthusiasm and the commitment that there is for people to find innovative ways. And interestingly, you know, when people are really driven at the coalface, because we need to focus on people that are at the coalface of service delivery or economic development, when those people are driven and they are pushed up against the wall, they find creative ways of coming out of the dark holes. And we've seen great work. I'm coordinating that program, and I can, you know, give you a few examples. Maybe not today.
I'm very fortunate. I work with innovation, and I see a lot of innovation happening, not just in Southern Africa, but throughout the continent. We are a resourceful bunch here on the African continent. But finally, your expectation of this two-day workshop that starts tomorrow in Kempton Park, what are the outcomes that you would like to see from this?
I would like to see these delegates, firstly, walking away, as I said, with a consolidated understanding of where we can make the greatest impact. I want them to understand that there is a relationship between all these big organizations, between the United Nations, the African Union, BRICS, you name them, that we all wanting to solve exactly the same solutions because they are all similar around the world. And I just want them to be better enthused and committed to driving innovation and to making it better for the citizens.
More connected and better communication, I would think, is what we're talking about.
Absolutely. That's why we want them to make sure that they send us as much information on their countries as possible so that the world can get to understand exactly what's happening in Africa.
Thank you for joining us. I share that view. I think it is the African century ahead of us. It's up to us to make it happen. Thank you for joining us. That is the Center for Public Service Innovation CEO Thuli Radebe joining us this morning to talk about, well, is it UNPAN?
UNPAN.
The UNPAN workshop that's taking place here in Kempton Park over the weekend. Now, we move on. FIFA announced in a statement yesterday that it has no legal grounds to remove the 2018 and 2022 World Cup competitions from Russia and Qatar. Despite widespread speculation, that bribery led to the awarding of soccer's biggest event to the regions back in 2010. Now, let's just take a quick look at your comments. This is what we've seen at SABC Newsroom. James Azar says, in the same elevator as Jack Warner, talk about an awkward good morning. FIFA corruption Tuesday morning. Yes, indeed, James. That's a nice coincidence, isn't it? Be part of the story. Abner Knox says, fact, $10 million was given. Debatable. It was simply a bribe, probability for development and to secure votes. Isn't that how football business has been done for the last 50 years? Matthew Browning says soccer news is getting more and more like House of Cards every day, talking about the FIFA scandal. Mac Maharaj CIA, this is a fake Mac, by the way. Jack Warner, stealing Haitian earthquake relief money. The man has no morals. FIFA corruption, yes, of course, everyone is on Jack Warner's back right now. I suppose there has to be a fall guy in every story, isn't there? Now, June is Blood Donor Month, and the world celebrates Blood Donor Day on the 14th of this month. Here in South Africa, 3,000 units of blood transfused to people who are in need of blood every single day. The South African National Blood Services has set a target of 8,000 pints of units of blood for 2015, but currently there's enough blood stock to last us only 3 days. People are encouraged to come out and make a difference under the theme, Thank You for Saving My Life, a message of appreciation from blood recipients. We are joined this morning by Vanessa Raju, who is the Brand and Communications Manager for the South African National Blood Service. Very good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning.
Nice of you to come and join us again.
Thanks for having me.
Every so many months I see that we are running out of blood. But it always seems as if we get along. Is it that South Africans like to see us in peril and then come and donate in droves at the last minute?
It seems so. I mean, as you mentioned, we have a kind of pattern. We see it over Easter, we see it over the June holidays and over December, where we see a sudden decline in the number of units we collect. And this is purely because people are not donating at those periods. But the rest of the time, when business as usual, we manage to collect our 3,000 units a day. Often we struggle, but when we go out to the media and we talk about the shortages, people respond.
Can you tell us about the process after donation? There we see a very fit man who's now going to donate blood. What's the process after that?
Well, you have minimum requirements to be a donor. You have to be between the ages of 16 and 65, weigh a minimum of 50 kilos, and be in good health and live a sexually safe lifestyle. When you come to a donor centre, you'll have to fill out a questionnaire. We look at your lifestyle and your health, and these questions are really to assess the safety of the blood and for you as a donor, the safety of yourself. And then you're good to donate, provided that your iron levels and your blood pressure is good on the day.
So what kind of lifestyle puts you out of the equation of donating blood?
Well, for example, if you have unsafe sex, that's a risk.
Yeah,
and
that's always a risk, isn't it?
You will be deferred if you've had more than one sexual partner, if you've participated in drugs that had a needle involved, those kind of things. There's other medical reasons you will be deferred as well.
Why is it then? Now, some people find it difficult to donate blood, others more easy. Just run us through that process and what should people do if they have this problem?
Well, there isn't, I think, sometimes it's the type of vein you have that could cause a slight complication. When donating blood, it may take a little longer. But the important thing is to have had a good meal on the day and to take it easy after donating. If you're a sportsman and you're a gym fanatic, try not to do it on the day and drink lots of fluid to replenish the fluid you've lost when you donated blood. And
rest, of course, afterwards, I suppose, is common sense. Now, I also see a stat that a lot of blood gets destroyed. Or does that not fit? How much of the blood that you receive in the bank actually has to be destroyed?
Well, it just depends on the testing and what we pick up. We're very stringent in terms of our screening, so we're lucky that in our country people understand, and the screening test before you donate is adhered to. So we don't really discard a lot, but we have seen wastage in terms of hospitals ordering more. But we've put systems in place, and over the last 3 years, we've seen a positive increase in terms of blood that hasn't been discarded, and so it's helped a great deal in putting these measures in.
Now it's winter now in South Africa, and a lot of people are a little bit sniffly. They've got some form of cold or bronchitis, the like, whatever. How does that affect your drive to get more blood and the sort of illnesses? Can you still donate if you've got a bit of the flu?
Well, it does impact us greatly. From June till about August, we suddenly see a decline in the amount of blood we collect. We do go into shortages certain times in this period. And because you're sick, you're obviously not well enough to donate. And if you're on antibiotics, you have to wait 7 days after you've finished your last antibiotic before you can come through and donate blood. So this takes away many people in terms of that. And, of course, the cold weather plays its part in people not coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And over the main, in the main, sort of, if we look at the South African picture, are we seeing an increase in people being more conscious and getting involved with your programs? And do we see more donors?
Well, there is an increase in terms of our donor base. We are at 462,000 people in our donor base. But the problem we experience is they're not regular donors. And we may attract new people who'll come through and donate once, and they don't really see the process through. And it's important for people to understand regular donors are seen as safer donors. Yeah. You understand the process, you understand what's required. So the chances are you're more aware of the lifestyle you should live and your health before you come through and donate blood. But we encourage our donors to donate at least 4 times a year. So it takes about 30 minutes to donate. That's 2 hours of your year to help save about 12 lives, because your 1 unit of blood can save 3 lives.
Well, I do it right here at the SABC because you guys come here 4 times a year to come and donate, so we do it right as we walk in the building. Vanessa, thank you for joining us. You guys are doing a super job keeping South Africa alive. Thank you once again. It's Blood Donor Month. Come on, do the right thing. Go and donate some blood. You could save your family's life, your friend's life. You can save your own life even. You never know. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the whole show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.